The town of Ridgemont held its collective breath every time Marcus Stone came down from the mountain. He appeared 4 times a year like clockwork, a man carved from the wilderness itself, with shoulders broad enough to carry timber and eyes the color of storm clouds. The widows noticed first, as widows do. There was Sarah Hemmings with her golden hair and her bakery that smelled of cinnamon and hope. There was Patricia Crane, still beautiful at 40, who owned the general store and whose husband had left her comfortable. There was young Lily Watson, barely 23, whose husband had died in a mining accident, leaving her with porcelain skin and an inheritance. They all found reasons to cross Marcus's path when he came to town, offering smiles, conversation, casseroles left on his truck seat. Marcus was polite, always polite, but he never lingered. He bought his supplies, loaded his truck, and disappeared back into the green embrace of the mountain. The widows wondered, then gossiped, then eventually stopped trying. Some men, they decided, were meant to be alone. What they didn't see was where Marcus went every visit without fail before he left town. At the end of Maple Street, in a narrow shop with a faded sign reading Repairs and Alterations, sat Violet Chun. She was 26. Years old and weighed nearly 300 pounds, a fact the town whispered about with the same regularity they discussed weather and wheat prices. Violet's mother had died when she was 12, and her father had worked himself to death trying to keep the shop running. At 19, she'd inherited a failing business and a lifetime of sideways glances. She kept her head down, did her work with hands that could make magic with needle and thread, and tried to take up as little space in the world as her body would allow. The first time Marcus brought her his torn boots, 5 years ago, he barely looked at her. Just set them on the counter and asked if she could fix the sole that was coming loose. Violet had nodded, quoted him a fair price, and he'd grunted acceptance. When he returned a week later, the boots were perfect, the stitching invisible, stronger than the original. He'd examined them with careful attention, then met her eyes for the first time. "You do good work. Thank you," she'd whispered. That became their pattern. 4 times a year, Marcus brought her something: torn jacket, ripped work pants, a canvas pack with a broken strap. He never made small talk, never looked at her with pity or disgust or the careful neutrality most people employed. He just treated her like someone who did good work. That was worth more than he could possibly know. Year 5, on a September visit, Marcus brought a flannel shirt that had been savaged by a bear encounter. The claw marks had shredded it across the back. Violet took it with trembling hands, imagining him facing down the beast that had done this. "You hurt?" she asked before she could stop herself. "Some scratches, nothing that won't heal," he paused. "Shirt might be beyond saving." "I'll try," Violet said, and she meant it as more than a promise about fabric. She worked on that shirt for 2 weeks, taking it apart and rebuilding it with a precision born of desperation she didn't fully understand. She reinforced every seam, replaced the torn panels with matching flannel she drove 3 towns over to find. When she was done, it was better than new. Marcus came to collect it on schedule, tried it on right there in the shop. It fit perfectly across his broad shoulders, the fabric strong and true. He looked at himself in her small mirror, then at Violet with an expression she couldn't read. "Why do you work so hard on my things?" he asked. The question caught her off guard. She could have said, "Because you pay me, because it's my job, because what else do I have?" Instead, the truth tumbled out. "Because you're the only person who doesn't look at me like I am invisible or like I am too visible. You just see someone who does good work." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something he'd never done before. He sat down in the chair across from her workbench. "Can I tell you something?" he said. "Those widows in town, they're nice enough, pretty too. But they see a mountain man, a project maybe, or a story to tell their friends. They don't see me." He met her eyes. "You're the only person in this town who's ever asked if I was hurt? Who cares if I'm okay, not just what I can provide?" Violet's heart hammered against her ribs. "I always wonder if you're okay up there, alone. I am alone because it's easier than people seeing what they want to see instead of who I am." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But I'm tired of easier. I'm thinking maybe I want something real." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I drive 4 hours down this mountain 4 times a year, and I tell myself it's for supplies. But I could get supplies anywhere. I come here because for 15 minutes, sitting in this shop, I feel seen. I feel known. He took a breath. I come here for you, Violet. She felt tears burning behind her eyes. Marcus, look at me. Really look at me. I am looking at you. I've been looking at you for 5 years. His voice was gentle but firm. I see hands that can heal what's broken. I see someone who works with care and pride. I see someone who asked if I was hurt when everyone else just saw a man who survived. He paused. I see the person I think about every day I'm up on that mountain. People will talk, Violet whispered. People always talk. Let them. Marcus stood, extended his hand. Have dinner with me tonight. Let me take you somewhere nice, somewhere you deserve. Violet looked at his hand, calloused and honest, offering something she'd stopped believing existed for girls like her. She thought about all the years of making herself small, of believing the world's verdict on her worth. Then she took his hand, and it was steady and warm and real. That night, Marcus Stone walked into Ridgemont's nicest restaurant with Violet Chun on his arm, and yes, people stared. But he looked at her like she'd hung the moon, and she smiled like someone who'd finally found her way home. The widows whispered, the town buzzed. And up on the mountain, in a cabin being prepared for two,